Hello, everybody. Welcome to twitch.tv/the Onyx Path for the virtual gaming and running online games panel. My name is Travis Legge. My pronouns are he and they, and I will be the master of ceremonies for this. Our annual get together of story guides and partner channel leads and people who are making the show happen to talk about the art form of running games in front of folks. I would like to take a moment before we get into our introductions and whatnot, just to remind everyone the reason for the convention. We are supporting our friends at the Bodhana Group. They are an amazing charity. They do work to basically focus on mental health using the tabletop role-playing space. So the convention, we're raising funds for them. I've thrown a donate link in the chat as well as the informational link about them. And they're also going to be on tomorrow, I believe, on Dork Tales. They're going to be streaming.
Ooh, nice.
Branch Riders, their role-playing game that they're working on in association with Onyx Path. So check your schedules, which you can find over at the official Discord, because it's not impossible that my brain has turned into Jello and everything is melded together into one thing. So
Happens.
yeah, it does. It absolutely does. So before we get too far afield, let's go ahead and do our intros. Let's start things out with Chaz. If you could please tell us who you are, what you do, your pronouns, and something fun that you'd like to share with the audience.
That's a lot of pressure. So hello, everyone. My name is Chaz Calendar. I'm a PhD student in Colorado State University, where I study what do I say now? Music, gender, and power. Essentially, how mechanics and music and video games create this like narrative that we understand through culture. Essentially, that's a fancy way of saying I get to play Fire Emblem and then write about it for my dissertation, which is great. Like I love it so much. Something fun. Travis has been my longest time DM, and Travis, I don't know if you know this, you started DMing for me like the week after I started grad school. So my views of grad school are like wrapped up with your not Scion game.
My Skylanders game? Oh,
yeah.
Well, I that's both beautiful and horrible. I'm sorry that those things will be forever entwined.
That's how I feel.
But it's a good measuring stick, I suppose. That's awesome. That's very cool to know. Speaking of things that are very cool to know, Kelly, please give us all your pertinent details.
Hey, everybody, I'm Kelly Clark. I am the host over at twitch.tv/dorktales or youtube.com/dorktales or wherever you find your podcasts. I am a writer, performer, sometimes voice actor, and I'm a washed out college professor, which is pretty great. Now I'm a professional streamer. So happy to be here.
Gaze upon your future, Chaz. Gaze upon
Oh, God. I know you love a PhD. I just have the master's.
There are worse fates.
So that's where it is. And you can catch me and Travis, actually. Travis is playing alongside me in a Star Trek Adventures game over on the Dorkels Patreon. Humans. Yes, I am not a merry man. Yeah, it's such a fun game. It's going to be live on our public stuff in about 2.5 months, and it's just the funniest stuff, man. It's so good.
It has been a ridiculously good time. But if you want to see it ahead of that, you should go over to the patreon.com/dorktales and give them money so that you can come and watch me be a Ferengi. It's amazing.
You're a great Ferengi too.
You.
Like it's.
I pride myself on that. Thank you. I think.
It's a good thing.
I suppose there are worse things to be known for. And I guess speaking of worse things to be known for, Gilbert, please give us your pertinent.
That's me, the worst to be known for. I am Gilbert Ramos, he, him, found over on the internet at Ramos the Nomad. You find me primarily over on Rolling Nomads Twitch, twitch.tv/Rolling Nomads. And I'm story guide, writer, um, and I'm real bad at intros. That's me in a handbasket.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I dig it. So again, I want to extend my thanks to everyone that's on this screen, as well as everyone who's not on this screen right now that has come together to make our 4th annual Onyx Path virtual gaming convention happen, make it be a success, make it be fun. The fun is just getting started. We've had just a couple panels and a few actual plays. We got content coming at you all weekend long. So definitely check that out. If you have come here looking for advice or tips on running online games, feel free to ask us questions in the chat. We will, I'm sure, meander around that topic a little bit here and there. But if you ask us questions, we will definitely do our best to answer them, provided that they're either not silly or definitely silly enough. Before I guess before we start digging into that, so each of you has been running games virtually now for quite some time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When did you get started, Kelly?
So I used to hate digital games. I loathed them. I did a stint as an English teacher in Japan for a year and tried to keep an old Pathfinder game going back in like 2013, and it exploded. I hated running digitally. And then COVID happened. And it was the only way. We had just started Dork Tales about a year before that, and we were running in my living room on this big table, and it was going okay. The sound was crap. And then the pandemic happened. We had to move to remote. The day after I went and shelled out $1,000 for microphones that I'd been saving all year for, I bought all these microphones, and then we couldn't use them. So we moved to digital the day after I bought those, and the store closed, so I couldn't return them. So that's fine. I got one of them here. I've loaned them out to players.
I was going to say, did you eventually mail them out to your players?
Yeah, the problem is that they're XLR mics, so you need an input, like you need an interface for computers. So a couple of my players have those. I also have them on hand for now that we can get together in person, we do occasionally record podcasts.
Nice.
So, which is nice. But so yeah, it's been about 3.5 years now, 3 years and 4 years in March. When the hell did this happen? 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 3 years.
I know talking about time in the era of the pandemic is a little bizarre.
Oh my God. But now I've fallen in love with it. You can do so much now. I've had some players that have moved halfway across the province that I'm in right now that still can keep in touch and play. And honestly, now it kind of feels that like after this whole thing that like the world seems a lot smaller in a positive way. Like you can move anywhere without worrying about losing your friends and keep playing games.
That's true. That's true. And that is a definite, I'm sure, unintended benefit of the way things have shaken out. How about you, Gilbert? When did you start doing online, like running games online?
We started early before the pandemic. Before I had hair, I was in the military, and yeah, everyone moved around a lot, so we kind of just ended up having to move to Discord for our original. It was just a D&D game, and then we started a Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle, and by that point, everyone had changed station and moved across the world, and I think a year later, the pandemic hit, or like 6 months later, or something like that. And then we got our big break, as it was on Onyx Path, whenever we were doing our vampire stuff, and that was in 2019, late 2019, 2020. Yeah, it's been a while, and it's kind of been the norm for a long time now.
Yeah, it's weird coming out of, and we say coming out of the pandemic as if anything has actually changed about the pandemic. It hasn't. We've just all as a species gotten tired of it. But now that people are returning to, it's one thing I do want to touch on is now that people are returning to in-person gaming and things like that, how that affects what it is that we do. But before we do that, Chaz, obviously we touched on this a little bit in that you had started playing during the online Scarlands game with me.
Yeah.
Had you run anything online prior to that?
No. Actually, I first started like actually running online stuff like November of 2020 because pandemic. I saw this like Final Fantasy 14 5e thing, and I was like, yes, I'm going to take my friends and force them to do this. And it had to be online. But like I didn't consider myself. The first time in my mind that I ran an online thing was when you asked me to do crap. It was something for Scarlands, kind of like deserty necromancer involved. I don't know, but that was the first time I was like, I am like doing this online in front of people, and I was like super nervous.
If I'm not mistaken, that was at an Onyx PathCon, wasn't it? Perhaps at the first Onyx PathCon.
I think so. Yeah,
something from Visual Watch, maybe.
Yeah,
it was Vigil Watch because I remember I think it was a part of that.
Yeah, like that's where I met you, and like that because I was like super nervous. I didn't know anyone, but I met Gilbert, great guy, and he actually like came from Vigil Watch to my like Final Fantasy one, and that's when I started like doing it like more often, not just with like forcing friends to do things they don't want to do, but just like volunteering here, playing with like people I don't know, just having like longer. That's where I consider myself being like, okay, yeah, I do things online now, and it's been super fun.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, great. So obviously we've all been at this for a little bit. I started, I guess probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, doing a little bit of like D&D actual plays on my channel, and then when I started doing work with Onyx Path, I was like, well, we have this Twitch channel. It would be kind of cool to get some actual plays going on it, and yada, yada, yada. And now here we are, several years and many conventions later. And it seems they still keep letting me do it. Nobody has shut off my access yet. So I guess I haven't screwed it up too badly. But yeah. So speaking of, I guess, the of the pandemic and its ending times, because I think it's fair to say that those of us who have been running online games for audience consumption did get a bit of a we had the benefit of a slightly captive audience, right? People were looking for things to do and things that didn't involve leaving their house. How, if at all, has that sort of return to quote unquote normalcy affected the way that you approach your online play, if at all, and the way that you sort of, I guess, engage with your audience? I'm assuming, and if it does affect the way you engage with your players, also please let me know. But I'm assuming that's more of like an audience engagement impact.
Well, I think there's been a slight hit in viewership numbers. Like that's been like kind of noticeable. I've noticed that some of my actual plays have been like pretty successful, but like the biggest one happened during the pandemic. But I think it's been pretty steady. I think a lot of people got really hooked on this type of storytelling. And I think that's lucky enough that any community you built during that, I guess we've all trauma bonded and we're all kind of sticking together still. I don't know if that's a good thing, but
it's not unfair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. How about you, Gilbert? Any insight into that or any thoughts on it?
Not off the top of my head. I can go after Chaz though. I'm so sorry. I'm still.
I feel like it's a slightly unfair question to Chaz, and I thought this the moment that I asked it, because Chaz doesn't actually stream on his own channel at any point. Chaz does not have a channel.
True.
Yeah.
Chaz is infamously not online.
A promise is a promise. It will happen before I graduate. It was the fall of 2019. I know, like, I haven't forgotten. I'm just really bad at it.
That's fair enough. I do know that, like, I mean, I've seen it ebb and flow with the Onyx Path channel. My own personal channel, really these days, it gets used once every 3 months. I will stream for a little bit while I'm working on Chainmail Bikini, which is the RPG Maker video game that I have up on Steam. I'll stream that once in a blue moon. But other than that, I really only use it for like Onyx PathCon anymore. But I know on the Onyx Path channel, the audiences have sort of ebbed and flowed a bit. And I don't think, I will say, I don't think that we have made any conscious effort to alter what we're doing in the face of that. Because my assumption that I'm operating from is that those audience fluctuations are sort of natural, and that there's no real way to kind of, you can't staple people to their chairs, right? You can give them. I mean, you shouldn't. And it's very difficult to, especially when you're trying to build like a global audience, because you got to fly around a lot. You're like, it's like that scene in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Are you a Magnolia fan? Yeah. So it hasn't really changed, I guess, a whole lot in like direct approach on my end, but I do try to be mindful of it. And try to make sure that we're changing it up and giving people new things, and that actually dovetails nicely into one of the questions that came up in chat, which is to the streamers: how do you deal with the episode 2 drop off, especially with more TTRPGs that aren't as well known? And I'll throw that one to Gilbert first, because Gilbert wanted to go after Chaz before. So
Sorry. This is just revenge for every game that I've been an asshole in his games for. But episode 2 drop off, like in terms of views, I don't really worry about it, if I'm being absolutely honest. What I always tell the players, and especially the new players that pop in at the first streamed games, because most people are usually nervous. And I always tell them not to worry about the fact that there's a camera on, because if we're just playing virtually, all they're seeing is the Discord or the Zoom call, and then I'll deal with the tech stuff. That's my advice to all the players, is just I will handle that side. You guys just have fun, enjoy yourselves. So as far as like episode 2 drop off goes, I think that not focusing on it too much, honestly. If you stress too much about viewership and like the numbers and stuff, I feel like it. I don't feel like it's conducive to the environment for stream games. Yeah, I think it's just, if you have a good crew, that really enjoys playing with one another and like has fun with it, and yeah, I think that keeps a steady amount. And there's always gonna be drop off. Episode ones always do really well, no matter what, because it's just like it's the premiere and everyone wants to see what it's all about. And then episode 2s pop up and people either miss it because of time or because of something popped up. But yeah, my advice is just not to stress it.
not stressing is always advisable. Kelly, do you have an alternate or additional take on this hot topic?
I totally do. See, I always do stress about it because Dork Tales is my job. So I really have to like angle things based on viewership and a lot of times retention. But I think that the worry about losing viewership, the viewership you're losing is casual viewership. Okay, so your goal in the first episode is to have a great time and to try to make sure that all your viewers have as great of time as possible, and your players even more so. That goes without saying. And the hope is that you will catch the attention of a few people who want to stick around. And it's the slow trickle up of building really avid fans. We've been really fortunate at Dork Tales that like we have a really strong contingent of people who come like every episode. Like every episode, I'm seeing the same like 30, 40 names in the chat, and you know they're constantly on our Discord, they're constantly communicating, and we have that type of, I mean, it's a parasocial relationship, which is a whole other can of worms, but it is a relationship, and it is fantastic to see those same names and to see that you build up really a community around that. So while the numbers do drop off significantly for episode twos, and then even further, I was looking at some stuff today, and one of my favorite homebrew D&D stories that I've ever run. It's one of the ones that, like, if anybody comes to the channel looking for our homebrew stuff, they're always like, "Oh, you have to watch this one." The final episode has 300 views. That's it. And I'm like, really?
Like in total, like the archived, like rewatched?
Yeah, the final episode on YouTube, 300 views. That's it. And I'm like, I mean, it's like 27 episodes in.
Mm-hmm.
So, people really had to slog to get there. And I'm sure I'm 50 of those views from just refreshing and checking things.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's just like, wow. But the people who got all the way, they won't shut up about it, which is great. And I love that. I'd rather have, you'd rather have like good people. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean? Like, you want to have people who are really passionate about what you do, sticking around, than people who are like, "Oh, it's okay. It kind of sucked though." You know,
the devoted few.
Right. Yeah. You don't want somebody showing up in episode 300 telling you what they don't like. That's the same thing they said in episode 4. Like, you've been saying that for 246 episodes.
What I found to be really successful, anybody who is looking to do streaming themselves and try to like get a following, run really short shows. Like we have a series of Alien Chariot of the Gods from Free League up right now. It's 3 episodes long. Huge. And it's only 3 episodes. So like the drop off is almost nothing because they see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. I was just going to say that one of the things that we do, we kind of have, there are a couple different strategies we take with Onyx Path's Twitch channel, but speaking in very broad strokes, we have ongoing content that is largely driven by like X game has, a perhaps even small but somewhat passionate fan base, right? And so we know that those people are going to tune in and watch that game, right? Or just even the people love running it. And they have a story they want to tell, and it's going to take them 20 episodes to get there. That's fine. And then a lot of our programming is like 3-4 episode, fire and forget almost kind of stuff. And with things like that, you can also, like, we've done things, and I plan on doing more of them, where like if you get together with a group and you do a 4-part story or a 3-part story and everybody had a blast, there's no reason you can't do a sequel. There's no reason you can't pull the rest of that group together to do a second, to do a different game. Anything that you would like to add to that, Chaz?
I mean, Gilbert, actually, you and Gilbert both know this. Because of my aversion to anything tech, I am very unaware of that side. From what I've seen from like when I've run and people have told me things, having like interesting characters like really help. Like in the first Scion game I did, people loved the Kitsune. They fucking loved her. And you could see in like episode 2, people would be like, yeah, like I want to see what's going to happen to her. Like they came back for her. So we did have like a shorter thing. Like it was a very strict, like this is going 12 episodes. So there was that, like, we know how long it is, but like they didn't come back for me. They didn't come back for Gilbert. They came back for this like one NPC. And I could see the same thing. Like if I'm coming back, like I need to be like invested in something, in some character.
Yeah, if you can lay out a hook, something that's going to bring people. That's why I'm a big fan of ending games on cliffhangers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Ending games just before an initiative roll. If you can end your game at a point where like everybody's like, nope, but what? Then you're probably in good shape. We have another question that I want to get into because it's I guess fairly straightforward and fairly practical. Is how do you deal with talking over each other? For me, I just let it happen. I'm so in my head when we're running games and so in the moment of the conversation that it doesn't bother me any more than it does during a normal conversation, which I fully admit might not make for the best viewing. But that's just how it flows. What do you think, Kelly?
It's the Canadian standoff for my channel. No, after you. So we've got a couple ones. Of like if I overtalk and it is something that if I'm just trying to like move a scene along, but if someone's like coming in and being like, oh, I have a character perspective that I really want to like, it's obvious they're trying to do something rather than just like fill some time. I'll just back off and be like, oh no, after you, go ahead. But besides that, it's watching body language, watching the mute icon come up because everybody keeps muted, so that there's no sound bleed. And also we also do some because we're framed, you can't see the corners of our screen. So sometimes somebody will raise a hand or will make a physical gesture that other players can see, but the audience can't. Yeah. And that's a good way of being like, I'm going next. I got a thing.
Cropping is handy. Cropping is definitely handy. How about
cropping
you?
is so.
How about you, Chaz?
I think another unintentional benefit of the pandemic is we are way better online. Because I remember, the first year, everyone was talking all the time. It was hated, but now like people seemingly naturally like they'll talk and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then we kind of like work it out. And so for me, talking over isn't a big thing, and honestly, I can use it as a general gauge of like how into the story the players are, because once they like really start talking over each other, I'm like, yeah, I got them.
Yep. Now they're engaged.
Now they're in it.
Anything that you would like to add to that, Gilbert?
That's a genius thing, Kelly, is to have the crop and then like the hand raise. I've never thought of doing that. I'm gonna steal that.
But please do. The other thing is to teach them not to say sorry.
Yeah.
Which must be very difficult given your Canadian population.
Oh my God. Well, I'm from the Midwest too. So this is right, like, oh,
so
man.
You're honorary Canadian even before you moved there.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so for me personally, when I'm running a game, if I'm running a game, I usually step back and let the players speak. If players are talking over one another, I usually have that's something I addressed during session 0 is like, hey, this is going to be online. It's going to be a pain. Sometimes audio is a little bit slower than regular speaking voice. So we'll if there's crosstalk, then we'll try to tackle it in that moment. And most people are really, I think, like Chaz said, people have gotten really, really good about, like, oh, please go ahead. It's. I think they hit the nail on that, honestly. But the little hand wave, the hand thing, I like that a lot. I'm gonna start doing that.
Yeah, that's pretty smart. That's wicked smart.
Wicked smart.
Speaking of questions and length, well, one of the questions is, speaking of length, do you think there's some potential in creating shorter edited versions of actual play streams? I got opinions on this, so I'm going to share those real quick.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then I'll pass it off. Not if you're planning on using Twitch at all. There's no point in doing that. We do it sometimes. On this channel, sometimes we run pre-recorded streams.
Why not?
It completely tanks your viewership. It's just, in my experience, it's almost as if you had not streamed it. I just don't think Twitch is the platform for it. Doesn't mean we're not going to do them in the future, but I always look at the always disappointing numbers on them and go, yeah, that tracks. Now, other platforms, if you're talking doing a podcast, if you're talking doing YouTube, things along those lines, then yeah, I think there's definitely some legs to the idea. And if you want to create an actual play game where you are going to rely on things like editing, I think looking at one of those at a YouTube or something like that might be the way to tackle it. Because one of the things that I think drives Twitch a lot is the ability to engage with the players in real time, the ability to feel like you're having an impact on the game. It's just the ecosystem that's developed here. But I'm happy to have dissident opinions. So please, Kelly, what do you got?
Most of my games are live, but we're role players primarily. Like, we're doing our best to act, so we don't actually interact with the chat very much at all, like visually. So like right now, chat, you can see me talking, but normally during a game, I wouldn't be addressing you unless we were in our intermission period where we're just chatting with you guys for 10 minutes before we hop back in. I edit the crap out of all my games on YouTube, which is weird. That's not very normal in the actual play culture. I see a lot of actual plays that upload and they leave like a 30-minute pre-roll. Mm-hmm. And I edit down to like crosstalk. I edit crosstalk out. I spent 2 hours editing a Dragonlance episode today. Like it's I edit more than I run. It's ridiculous.
I don't mean this is like demeaning as it's going to sound, but bless your heart.
but that's why. But I think that translates directly to viewership numbers because it cleans everything up. It makes it look more authentic, or big budget, right? And God damn, a Premiere membership is a big budget. It's so expensive, guys. Don't do it. But one of the things that we do is we have a really large following on Patreon, and what we do is we release. Right now, it's 6 games a month that go on Patreon first, and they're live on YouTube for Patreon. Then they get edited down, to the actual, take all the fluff out, all that stuff. Then, after a cool off period of 3 months, so it's an advanced access for our viewers. That's the Star Trek game Travis is in, and a Strixhaven episode that you were in that just went live a couple weeks ago, where you were a centaur.
Yes, it's funny because if you go watch it go right from this panel and go watch that YouTube video, I look like I had Rip Van Winkled inside of a dumpster for the last half century.
You don't age.
Yeah. No, I mean I look older in that. I look.
Do you?
Yeah, much because my hair was longer and I had a beard and yeah.
Yeah, you did.
I
at the time.
saw it the other day when it first went live, and I was like, "Oh God, jeez, why didn't somebody tell me my ass was so big?" So anyway, continue.
So then we rebroadcast those on Twitch and drop them on YouTube as well. And I don't think it's as bad as you're saying. With it kills your viewership completely. I think it's for one, I don't list it as a rerun because it's a new broadcast, damn it, and it's a new broadcast to Twitch, and I think that button kills you. So I just make sure that. I make sure that the word pre-recorded is plastered everywhere. So if anybody complains, it's there. And I make sure to have as many of the cast members in chat as possible because you're actually getting more interaction from the chat, from us, than we would be live because we're not paying attention to the audience while we're playing.
That's absolutely true. And I think it's an aspect that I don't think a lot of the audience members necessarily grok when you do it that way. Because, yeah, one of our contingencies, if somebody's going to do a pre-recorded stream on our channel, is that they have to have players in the chat during that.
Yeah, because what's the point? Right? The only other way you do it is I know a lot of other a lot of big D&D streamers do daily they're not reruns anymore, but they're rebroadcasts. And they do them daily, and they've got 30-40 viewers in a broadcast with nobody in the chat who's from the game.
Right, but when you look at I think it's a matter of magnitude, though, right?
Yeah.
If you look at numbers for your average views, I know Dork Tales is probably getting the most average views out of every participant in Onyx PathCon on a regular basis. So you're going to have, even if you're getting the same percentage, you're going to have a slightly larger number, right? But if you take somebody like a Dimension 20 or a Critical Role or some shit like that.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about those guys.
Even if 0.5% of their audience is watching it on a rerun, it's still fucking huge.
It's immense.
Right.
It's immense.
So I guess part of it is building that community and whatnot. But I don't think it's a good way to start, particularly on Twitch.
Yeah, not unless you're really slick.
You gotta be, if you're super duper awesome, putting in 3D effects and shit, then knock yourself out. But
yeah, exactly.
Anything that you would like to add, Chaz or Gilbert? I know Kelly and I just tiraded for a second.
Sorry. Travis and I just go for an hour. It's ridiculous.
Do you have any, Chaz?
Yeah, I got nothing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I do the same thing, much like Kelly. I edit everything for YouTube. I don't have such an extensive following, nor do I have a Patreon and stuff. Though I do like your system for Patreon. I'm gonna have to talk to you after this.
Do it. Hit me up. You can find me on Discord. I'm the Dork Tales on Discord now because they took away my numbers.
Yeah, they took away my numbers too.
I was so worried I was gonna lose my handle.
Yeah, same. But yeah, no. As far as editing for YouTube, yeah, no. I spent a lot of time editing for YouTube, which is why everything goes up late because everything's just me. But yeah, I think that there definitely is some validity to it, and I think that it helps, especially. And I don't personally run reruns on the Rolling Nomads channel. That's not because like a personal like gripe against it at all or anything like that. I just haven't thought to. I guess I just feel I don't know. I didn't think too much about it, but yeah, having people in the chat, I think would be really great for interaction as well. I think that, I mean, you tell me, Kelly. I'm sure that a lot of people really appreciate it.
Yeah, I would
being able to have the interaction.
I would say it's a must-have if you're going to be doing reruns and whatnot. Unless you've got thousands of subscribers and you're just doing it so that people can catch.
Right.
Yeah. As far as like, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say it's like there's a bit of a drop off. Like I'd say you lose for me, you lose about 20 to 30% of your viewership, maybe a bit more. 50 at most on a bad night. But it is worth it. If you got the content, you might as well run it.
True.
Someone's gonna tune in and fall in love with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, I mean, random occurrences happen. So like we'll have weeks where like all of a sudden like, oh, we can't stream tonight. So I probably should do like a rerun of like, hey, this was last week's episode. But yeah, that'd be neat.
Yeah, it's not a bad tactic like if you have a player out or something like that.
Yeah.
I also used. Sorry.
After you.
I was gonna say I also used to pre-record sick episodes.
Sick.
Where it'd be like a random one shot.
Nice.
It's like, oh, everybody's sick tonight, so here's an episode of Ghost Hunters that was never before seen.
Oh yeah, Kelly, we gotta talk. I'm doing this all wrong.
Don't do it like me. I'm stupid.
I don't know. It seems to be working out okay.
It works out okay.
Editing shorter versions for YouTube, absolutely. I always cut out crosstalk. I always cut out the pre-rolls and like the intermission screens and all that. That's just cuts dead time.
Yeah. As is frequently noted in the chat, so far this weekend, I'm a pretty busy dude. I don't get around to doing a lot of editing of our actual plays. And that's not because I wouldn't love to. It's just that like I literally have entirely too many things that aren't stream related that I'm juggling. Yeah, I would recommend if you have the resources to do so to do it. And I'm not sure how the online editing tools for YouTube are anymore. I know for a time it was actually pretty easy to just trim like your pre-rolls off once you'd exported the stream over. So I mean, even you
can do that.
You don't have to get a Premiere subscription. You know what I mean? Like,
and there are free versions. You can find free versions of video editing software out there. I think DaVinci or
everything is free if you try hard enough.
Well,
this is true. Yar.
Having said all that, though, another question I do want to get to, and I kind of bump this to the front just so we don't miss it, is there was a question about thoughts about virtual games and accessibility. This is another thing that I have a lot of thoughts on. I think it's an opportunity to always be improving, and I think the tools are starting to finally get there to where they are viable, and that's in the span of the time that I've been streaming on Twitch. It's gone from, I mean, yeah, closed captioning would be great, but it's unthinkably impossible to do, to now that it's pretty doable. So it's just a matter of finding the tools that work and getting them implemented. Do you have any, this is somewhat dovetails with your area of study, right, Chaz? You got any thoughts on?
It does, yeah. Honestly, it's very much echoing what you talk about, where it dovetails, but it's far enough away that where I would never claim expertise, but I have been open to like just altering how I play in order to like increase accessibility. Because yeah, like I remember when I first started, someone was like, hey, should we like switch over to this platform because it has like closed caption? And there was like a big backlash with like 2 or 3 of my players. And I was like, we're going to do it because why not? Like, that's just like, why not? And so like, it's always like trying to like see what you can. And especially because like, even though like, it feels like forever, it was 3 years ago. Like this is still very new. Right. And so I still feel like I'm like changing how I do things. Like I used to do like virtual tabletops. I don't anymore. And so I'm very much willing to change anything if it increases accessibility.
Absolutely. And just to toss in kind of a personal anecdote, and again, this is an outdated anecdote. So like a year ago. I don't think it was might have been for last year's Onyx PathCon. There was a panel that I did that we did do pre-recorded. And because we did the panel pre-recorded, I had the opportunity to use Adobe's auto captioning software, and they had just updated it. And it was better, you know what I mean? But it still was. I still spent 3 times as long as the runtime of the video going through and correcting typos and shit like that. So, I mean, it's still not 100% there. But that's another place where like, you know, we talk about a lot of the discourse in the RPG space, specifically about like AI is very like, just burn it, kill it with fire. That's how you get automatic captions, folks. That's how you get accessibility tools is through machine learning. Yeah, it's a matter of, you know, using the right tool for the right job, you know. But having said that, I mean, even YouTube's automatic captioning is better than.
It's actually getting ridiculously good.
Yeah,
it's doing well.
So things like that are always a good thing. Providing resources to your players specifically. Though I took the question to mean a little bit more for the audience, but you know, also, you know, being sure that you're providing resources to your players that are compatible with screen readers, that are you know, that they can zoom in if they need to, things along those lines. And that kind of stuff's not terribly difficult to generate, and it's definitely worth the effort to do so. And yeah, somebody as Corbin pointed out in the chat, auto captioning still has trouble with made up words and with non-English words, which is a huge thing in Onyx Path games, particularly Scion.
And depending on how your accent is, when you happen to break into your St. Thomas accent, it has no clue what you're talking about. But it's getting better. And like, that's where I am. Like, yeah, it's still bad, but it's getting better. We have a long way to go. And so like, when I'm aware of that, I just don't start talking like my grandmother for a little bit. Because it just
seeing the closed captions on become as gods whenever grandma came on screen, it was just like, oh, YouTube, you're getting there one day.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how different it is next year.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like the tech's moving pretty
flawless.
Fast. Yeah, it might be. We'll just replace us all with AI. That'll just be 4 auto-generated avatars on here having a conversation at next year's panel.
I will kill my avatar. I refuse to be replaced by a machine.
Someone had asked in the chat, do you have any experience with online LARPs? During the pandemic, some of the LARPs tried to survive without in person. I'm curious how that experience was and if it is going away. I don't have any firsthand experience with online LARPs. I am a big fan of Dystopia Rising, hence the Dystopia Rising Evolution t-shirt. And I know that some of them moved online during some of the Dystopia Rising LARPs moved online during the pandemic. I love that so much. It's one of my favorite games.
I'd love to play it someday. I wonder what it's like.
We need to make that happen. But yeah, I think, I don't have anything really to observe too much directly firsthand about online LARPs. Do any of you?
No, but one of our friends, Bunnyhearted, twitch.tv/Bunnyhearted, they play on Dork Tales and they played on Onyx Path stuff. They do some online LARPing on their channel and have done it before. So maybe check them out. They might be able to help you out there.
Yeah, definitely. And also just check them out just because they're awesome.
Yeah. Bunny's great.
There's that too. Yeah.
Bunny's in my mage game on Sunday if you wanna come hang out.
One of my favorite carbon-based life forms, as a matter of fact, would be
they are wonderful.
Go ahead. What was it?
The only experience I got with online LARP is through conversions from online LARP into like forum games, like play by post, and then also on TikTok of all places, Exeter by Night does like the videos back and forth of online LARP. I think that's a really creative way of seeing that.
So what do you guys mean by an online LARP then? Like, how does it dissimilar? Because, like, for example, on Dork Tales, all our games are costumed. So that's a huge portion of LARPing. So like, where do you draw the line with an online LARP? Because a few years ago we did my local gaming, most of the Dorktales team, we did a video LARP for Hunter the Reckoning. No, Hunter the Vigil, where it was a play-by-post social media game where we'd all film videos like we were social media people back before we were social media people, and like we'd go film videos around the city and then like do call-out responses. And that was a LARP we did that was really cool. But like, what kind of stuff are we talking about with the video LARP or with the online LARP?
Well, I think that. Go ahead.
By all means.
I was going to say, I think that opens up some interesting questions about different techniques you can use to apply storytelling. Like, for example, Gilbert, you mentioned play-by-post earlier, which is a thing that I've been aware has existed since the 90s, and I still can't do.
That's how I started.
I feel about play-by-post as Tommy Lee Jones feels about Jim Carrey. I cannot sanction his buffoonery. It doesn't click in my brain. It is a me problem, 100%. But having said that, though, like I remember back when I was doing independent film, there was this collaborative film project. For the life of me now, I can't remember what it was called. Nope, name totally escapes me. But it was essentially like a global call for filmmakers to make zombie film shorts that all took place in a shared universe.
Ooh, nice.
In a sense, that's kind of a LARP, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, whatever creative ways you can find to incorporate whatever tools are at your disposal into your medium of storytelling, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're doing is the same thing that humans have been doing since we were huddled around campfires in a cave. We're telling stories with one another and having fun. So whatever media you can use to enrich that experience, you should.
Absolutely. Online LARP, eventually, I think the biggest advice for online LARP, converting a game from in-person LARP into like online LARP, is to recognize that there has to be like sacrifices. And the medium is obviously going to change. So like through the TikTok stuff, it's just videos. People are replying to one another, and like Exeter by Night does really well with their Discord, keeping in contact. Like, hey, this is the meta plot right now. And then there's on the official Exeter TikTok, they'll like put like much like you said, Kelly, they do, instead of doing like social media, they have like a news report of like the fire in this club today, and everyone who's aware of what's going on in the plot goes, oh, the Sabat did that. Yeah, so
usually.
like there's
or was it a false flag by the Camarilla?
But so there's gonna be sacrifices and changes made.
Okay.
It's just a conversion.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's finding a different medium to explore that story in. Sorry, I'm trying to paste something in the chat and it's just not behaving its dang self.
Is that the playlist that I sent?
Yeah, because
Here, I'll do it. Anybody who's looking for a dorky ass time, that is the playlist for the Hunter the Vigil status update Network Zero LARP. It is so. I did some pretty cool special effects, man. I got a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood. These were basically just like short, bad independent horror movies. They're so bad, but so fun. And it's like 80% of the Dorktales cast, like 90% of us. Like it's a lot of fun. It's dorky as hell though. So there you go. I'll share that. Robin, if you're watching, share that on the Discord. Can we hop back on accessibility for 1 sec?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are 3 things that I would really suggest if you're getting into this. Number 1, keep a wiki. They're free to make. And if somebody has something that like if they're particularly forgetful, people with attention deficit disorder like myself, can be easy to forget something if you zone out for a sec. And having a wiki is just, it's invaluable, especially if you're running a long form campaign or chronicle. So useful. And if you have people in the chat that fill out the wiki for you, like even better. I have people who do that. It's amazing. I used to have to do it all by myself. If you are using music cues in your games, make sure it is not mandatory, because some people have misophonia. They have issues. I have a player who has hearing difficulties. Like she wears hearing aids and her hearing aids are Bluetooth. They actually connect to the game, but she can't do music about half the time, or it'll give her anxiety because it just isn't working that day. And then the last thing is something really small. I had a visually impaired person leave a bunch of comments on our YouTube way back in the day, and it was really complimentary. Sorry, humble, but like said, "Oh, I really enjoy your stream because it's really easy to imagine what's going on because you don't talk about the map too much. Like you try to be really descriptive." I had not even thought about people with visual impairments before that point. And from that moment, like our stream has made a really big push to not use map language if we're ever using maps in games, to always try to describe things a little bit more, to say, "Oh, I move to the left rather than I move over here." And it's little things that you can tell your players to do and that you can do yourself. It's just that little extra step that makes it easier for podcast listeners. It makes it easier for casual listeners. And it makes it less boring because any stream that I'm in, like especially D&D, where you got a big map and it's like, all right, I move here. You're playing a board game at that point.
Yeah.
Right. It can very
Absolutely.
easily. And I mean, and that's a problem that can happen at any table. But I think it's compounded when you have an audience. You know what I mean? Where it certainly turns into, oh, I'm going to hit it with my sword again.
Especially with like long combat, you're just like, all right, I move left. You cast the spell. And it's...
Although I still remember what Kelly said last time about long combat, which changed how it did things. Yep.
What? I did a thing. What was it?
Because you were like, one every 2 rounds, something has to change.
Yep. I stole that from Vampire 5th Ed. That's my favorite thing from that book.
Yeah.
Is they said that every 2 to 3 rounds, something changes. The cops show up. Somebody falls out a window. Like,
and that combined with, I saw somewhere else where like, if you have an enemy, don't have them be stats. Have them be thinking. Have them do things as they would. Like with those 2 things, like my groups have no clue what I'm doing. Because if I'm like, here's a slime, they're like, I don't know what kind of slime this is. I don't trust Chaz. Is a dragon going to come through the window? And I'm like, yes to all that. Let's go.
Literally every game I've ever played with Chaz is the fucking GM. Just like, I don't trust this man.
well, and people run away.
Yeah.
I remember playing a Hunter the Reckoning game back in college, and the storyteller who was running the game had this mall cop that was determined to take us down, and he was built like Rambo and wouldn't go. He was getting paid like $8 an hour to get shot at by magic terrorists, and he's like, "Yeah, you're going." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Have people run away. I have, like, even in D&D games, like, I'm like, yeah, the dragon runs, man. The dragon's like, screw this.
I'm smart to understand mortality. I'm not about to die, and I can fly. You can't. Bye. Gone.
Why?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think is probably best from like one of the best rules to if you're going to pull back into like OSR design and stuff like that. And it actually shows up in Pugmire in the Onyx 20 rules. Is the idea of like a morale check. Like,
oh, absolutely.
The idea that, like, if you don't want to just make the decision arbitrarily, have some dice that will determine, when X trigger happens, this person might run away.
Most people are not willing to fight to the death for any cause.
No, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was one of the best things about when Chronicles of Darkness came out. They had that mechanic where it's like you don't go into a fight looking to kill somebody usually, like unless you are. Like I have never been in a fight in my life where I wanted to kill someone. I just wanted to maybe like punch them once, right?
Like get one solid hit and then run away. Yeah.
Like nobody wants to die today, and if they do. They
don't need to be fighting. They need to sit down and talk.
Right.
They need a friend.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's not great. So we're pulling up on like the last 5 minutes of the panel already. Surprisingly, it goes by so fast. So if anybody has any last questions, go ahead and fire them off. But while we're waiting on that, I want to remind everybody once again, we've got programming all weekend. If you head over to our Discord. Ian has done the wonderful favor of putting all of the events in a lovely calendar on the Discord, so you can just go and see with countdowns what's happening when. We've got programming across 5 channels this weekend. Again, I want to give a huge shout out and a huge thanks to all of our partner channels, specifically Dorktales and Rolling Nomads, because they're here, but also Simulacra. We love you. I hope that your adventure game is going well. They're running live right now. And I suppose I should thank Plastic Age Plays. Thanks, Travis. You're welcome, Travis. So make sure you're giving everybody that's making this happen a follow. I also want to remind you just the reason that we're doing this convention in the first place is to support the Bodhana Group. They do amazing therapeutic tabletop role-playing game related work. And you should definitely check them out at the links that I've shared in the chat. And then last question that we're going to take is going to be, how do you use technology to get you into the game? I see a bunch of people using custom backdrops for their Zoom calls. Definitely having some art that you grab is always a good thing to do. I use the Zoom background I use literally because I'm lazy. But I highly recommend if you want to go for an immersive experience, grabbing art from the game that you're playing, grabbing art, there's plenty of resources online for getting like Creative Commons art, things like that. Ethically sourced background art. So that's one little way that you can really up your production value. Any thoughts or things to add? Chaz?
The few times I really use technology, it is using music as video game background music, just you're in a swamp. I have things planned for you. So it's just the constant creepiness in the back. That way I don't have to let you know it's creepy. You already know that I have creepy things coming. That's usually my go-to, but that is harder for me. I think I mentioned this last year as well, because I don't really have the mixers, and I want to make sure that everyone can talk. So that's a hit or miss for me, but when I do, that's what it is.
You can use Roll20 as a mixer, just so you know. So you just turn the volume down when you don't need it. You can already have it pre-playing, and then you can slowly bring up individual tracks. Just cap your volume in the master at about 70%.
Or I will.
So that you won't accidentally overdo it. Maybe 50% if you want the full slide. But that's what I do, and it allows a lot of flexibility.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, it's handy. If the presence of music doesn't just torpedo somebody's thought processes, which, as you mentioned before, Kelly, that you have a player that can be a problem for. For me,
that is the one. Yeah.
When I was in my 20s, I used to constantly, in my teens and 20s, I always had music going when I was running games. We had fight themes and shit. You knew if I threw on a certain song from Typo Negative that shit was about to pop off. I can't do that anymore. I literally can't. My brain shuts off. I just can't. I can't have music when I'm a player. I just can't do it. And that's probably just because I'm old. So if you can swing that, that's a good way to add some value, though. Anything? Any final thought to add to that, Gilbert?
I'll do something quick because I got people in my house now fixing my AC.
That sounds important.
It went out midstream the last game I was running, and I was like, Arizona, please. But music and backdrops is kind of usually what I use to augment tech for games with tech. I rely heavily on music. If I had somebody that had an issue with the music, then part of the reason why I enjoy Roll20, not a plug or anything like that, but because we can individually turn it down and turn it off. But I use the music to set the tone and mood and such. That's all I got, really.
Yeah, definitely. And just if you're going to be streaming, remember to make sure that your music is ethically sourced, that you're getting it from a place you have the right to use it from, and be aware of the existence of copyright trolls. Sometimes, even if you have music that you have the right to, you might have to go in and fight to prove that.
3 times this month. 3 times this month.
No, that's my biggest hurdle as a human being is trying to find royalty free music and not get copyright striked.
Yeah.
Hit me up after game. I'll give you some companies that are really good.
Yeah,
Humble Bundle.
Humble
we gotta
Bundle
talk
seems
so much.
but
We're gonna have a lengthy conversation.
realistically though, like the reality is you can do everything right legally, and people will, and you still may face copyright hits because people will try to monetize your content.
I got one the other day. I got one the other day that said the product has not been released yet, so the owner will not release the name of the track. So I didn't even know what song I apparently had stolen until I found that it was one from Tabletop Audio that had been used, which is a site that is open source. Like it's Creative Commons. It's Creative Commons, and I'm on their Patreon. Like it's also if you use somebody who has a Patreon, maybe throw a couple bucks at them, because if you're using their stuff, artists need to be paid.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of great websites, like Travis was saying, online where you can get backgrounds. Pixabay, Pexels, Unsplash, tons of stock photography ones, which are great to put a mood in. Costumes are something that everybody can do on their side of the table. And they don't have to be elaborate. They can be just a pin or a hat, but it does add to the mood. And then the last thing I want to say on the note that Travis said about art, if you're running something that is set in a role-playing games world, contact the role-playing game. Odds are they'll give you the art for free in high res because you're promoting their game.
Yeah.
Then you have permission to use it.
I'll let you in on a secret about the role-playing game industry. There's about one company that has a whole bunch of money to spend on advertising, and it's probably not the game that you're playing. So if you reach out to the game that you are playing and ask them for resources, I do know that Onyx Path loves throwing resources at people who want to create things because we want people seeing people playing our games. Chaz, any final?
Onyx Path is very good.
Thank you. We try. Chaz, any final thoughts on that or any other things that we've discussed?
Final thoughts about that. Something I found myself doing is using my lack of technology to my benefit. So I got these cards and I have it's very not clear what I'm doing. So my players know, like Gilbert said, we don't trust him. So I can use it in a way where if I was in person, people would know exactly what I'm doing. But because I recognize where I am, I can actually use this as a way to create that kind of sense of dread. Oh, he's planning something. What are those cards? Why are they so big? And so that's been super helpful to me. You don't need the best technology, just use what you have. And I have a plan. Oh, can you see it? You don't know what this is, but I'm throwing it right at you. Right. Technology.
If you used, okay, because I've seen those fucking cards.
You have.
do those sometimes just do? God damn it! Do those sometimes just not do something?
No, they don't.
Fucking with it? Oh, I hate you so much.
Yeah, when in doubt, psyops. You can always use psyops on your
player. Yeah.
Gaslight your players.
Make sure that they've consented to it. But on that bright, shiny note, I suppose we should.
Sorry, you were taking too long, Travis. I had to roll for something.
That's right, exactly. Nothing will get a group of players' attention like the GM suddenly rolling dice. But yeah,
that and a quiet. Oh shit!
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, having said that, we are a little bit over time, as is our want. But we do most of us, I think, have to get up early for streams and shit. So we should probably wrap things up. So before we run away, let's go out in reverse of the way we came in. Gilbert, please, your pertinence and anything you would like to promote.
Hi, I am Gilbert Ramos, found everywhere. Oh my God, Becky, please. Someone else, please.
Excellent. Chaz.
Hello, Chaz, PhD student who studies video game music and storytelling. We got a couple of Scion things that I have planned this weekend. So, we'll promote a couple.
Yeah, definitely. All the Scion content will be over at Rolling Nomads on the channel that of the guy who can't talk about himself. So definitely make sure that if you've not yet done so, you head over there and give them a follow so you can catch all of our Scion content. I'm going to bounce it back to Gilbert. Are you ready now?
Yeah, we're good. I am Gilbert Ramos. He found everywhere at Ramos the Nomad. Damn it, I'm bad at this. Yeah, twitch.tv/rolling nomads is for all of our stuff. We got all the Scion stuff for Onyx PathCon, which is great because I fucking love Scion. So that's like a big win for me personally, I guess. I don't know. It means nothing, but it's cool. You can find us on Twitter at _rolling nomads and me personally at Ramos the Nomad. So that's me in a handbasket, and I'm everywhere on Onyx Path and everywhere on Rolling Nomads channel. So appreciate it. Appreciate you guys very much for having me.
Appreciate you being here. This has been a hoot and a riot. And Kelly, all of your pertinence, please.
Hey, I'm Kelly. I'm the head dork over at Dork Tales on Twitch, YouTube, and wherever you find your podcasts. I'm going to be around Onyx Path this weekend. Tomorrow, I'm running Aberrant, and then one of my team members is running Pugmire. While I'm actually going to be in another panel with Travis tomorrow on community content, because I just was part of a big book that got released, Vampire the Requiem for Rome 2nd edition. So if you're on Storyteller's Vault, give that a look. I wrote about a pig. It was great. It was a pig that was made an emperor for a couple of weeks, and he has a fan club and might have conquered part of Gaul afterwards. It's dumb as hell, but it's such a good book, guys. It's like one of the best things that I've seen on Storyteller's Vault, and I'm not just saying that from nepotism. But thanks for having me here. It was a lot of fun. Oh, and I've got Mage on Sunday, so yeah, come back and watch. It's set in Seattle in 1999.
You're keeping busy. Yeah, definitely go over. I threw the Dork Tales link in the chat. Dork Tales is hosting all of our Ultra content this weekend.
Yep.
As well as all of our licensed partner games, such as Exalted Essence and World of Darkness. Definitely head over, shoot them a follow if you've not yet done so. That leaves me. I'm Travis. Pronouns are he and they when I'm not running games and writing them. And I also do run Plastic Age Plays, which is my name in the chat. But it's also where we're going to be holding all of our Onyx 20 and OGL 5e games for the weekend, as well as our home for They Came From. So we're going to have some, they came from Classified, they came from Beneath the Sea, came from Cyclops' Cave, a bunch of stuff going on over there. So please also head over and shoot me a follow. I would love it. It would make me all happy on my inside parts. And and on that bright shiny note, with that, leaving you with that visual, I'm going to call it a night, but we'll be back here first thing, rootin' tootin' early tomorrow. I believe our first actual play tomorrow morning is actually at 6 a.m. Eastern with Eddie Webb running Realms of Pugmire over at Plastic Age Plays. So don't miss out, especially if you're in Europe and that's not an ungodly hour for you. Till then, wash your hands, wear a mask, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you again real soon.
Have fun.
Goodbye, everybody. Moisturize.